What's going on, everyone? Charlie here. I have the next section of Regulation NMS, the CT plan, ready to go. This section is going to cover management of the LLC. Let's go ahead and break it down. Look at that little blob. It's so cute. Anyways, duties and powers of the operating committee. Article IV of the CT plan establishes the overall governance structure for the management of the LLC. Article IV, Section 4.1a, proposes that the LLC be managed by the operating committee. Article IV, Section 4.1 also provides that the operating committee has the authority to take actions it deems necessary to accomplish the purposes of the LLC, including, number 1, proposing amendments or implementing the policies and procedures. Number 2, selecting, overseeing, specifying the role and responsibilities of, and evaluating the performance of the administrator. Number 3, developing fair and reasonable fees for equity market data. Number 4, reviewing the performance of the processor and ensuring public reporting of the processor's performance and other metrics and information about the processors. Number 5, assessing the marketplace for equity data products and ensuring that the CT feeds are priced in a manner that is fair and reasonable and designed to ensure the widespread availability of CT feeds data to investors and market participants. Designing a fair and reasonable formula to be applied by the administrator for allocating revenue and reviewing and revising the formula as needed. Interpreting the LLC agreement and its provisions. And lastly, other specific responsibilities provided for in the LLC agreement. Now, the comment response to this, one commenter states that operating committee should function as a legislature with management to execute the plan and the SIP public purpose. This commenter further states that the diversified operating committee will be ill-equipped to run daily operation management functions to the detriment of the LLC. The terms of the proposed CT plan do, however, contemplate that the operating committee will act as a general decision-making body, while the administrator and the processors will be responsible for the day-to-day operational decisions. Another commenter expresses general support for the provision of the CT plan that states the responsibilities of the operating committee include interpreting the LLC agreement and its provisions, with the caveats that the non-SRO voting representatives have the opportunity to meaningfully participate in the process of interpreting a provision of the plan, and that the CT plan should provide more detail on what role the non-self-regulatory organizations representatives would have with respect to such decisions. This commenter also recommends that the operating committee adopt policies and procedures distinguishing operational interpretations of the CT plan from amendments required to be submitted to the Commission under Rule 608 of Regulation NMS. Now, the SEC response to this, they agree. The SEC agrees with commenter that the concept of administrative functions of the operating committee should be limited to prohibit certain delegations of authority and is therefore modifying Section 4.1b to exclude from the functions that may be delegated those administrative functions to be performed by the independent administrator pursuant to Section 6.1. Damn, Gary. Get him, boy. The Commission finds that this modification is appropriate because the functions delegated to the independent administrator, particularly those that involve administering vendor and subscriber contracts, performing audits, or assessing fees, necessarily involve access to sensitive information of significant commercial or competitive value, and therefore raise heightened concerns about conflicts of interest that can be adequately addressed only if these functions are performed by the independent administrator. Damn! In response to the comment that suggests that any delegation to an SRO voting representative or subcommittee controlled by the SRO voting representatives should be subject to a vote of the operating committee, the Commission agrees and notes that the terms of the CT plan state that delegations of administrative functions under the provision are subject to a vote of the operating committee. Additionally, in response to the comment that argues that administrative functions should not be delegated to a subcommittee composed only of either SRO voting representatives or non-SRO voting representatives, so basically they're saying you should either make it one side or the other. Either make it all non-self-regulatory organizations for voting or all self-regulatory organizations. And the point of this video is to show you that in the past, it's always been delegated to the SROs. This is like the first time I've seen where you're getting non-SRO voting representatives to come in and give their peace of mind on the situation, which is why we see all these comments. So, more comment response. The Commission agrees with the comment that states that a delegation under this provision does not convey any authority to take action. Such authority resides with the operating committee, and Article 4, Section 4.1b of the CT plan permits the operating committee to delegate authority only to implement a decision by the operating committee, develop a proposal for operating committee consideration or perform other ministerial functions on the operating committee's behalf. Finally, Article 4, Section 4.1c provides that neither the company nor the operating committee will have authority over any member's proprietary systems or the collection and dissemination of quotation or transaction information in eligible securities in any member's market or, in the case of FINRA, from FINRA's participants. The Commission received no comments on this provision of the CT plan and is approving it as proposed. Damn, Gary. Flex boy. Okay, composition and selection of the operating committee. Here we go. Section 4.2a provides that each group of members that are affiliates, an SRO group, and each non-affiliated SRO will select an SRO voting representative to serve on the operating committee and vote on its behalf. The Commission is approving this section as proposed. Supernote 216 gives examples of SRO groups on the operating committee, which is going to be like New York Stock Exchange, NYSE American, Chicago, National, things like that. And then we have the non-affiliated SROs are FINRA, IEX, LTSC, and MEMX. Now, sorry about that. My kid came in the room. Anyways, continuing. Inclusion of non-SRO voting representatives. So, Section 4.2b provides that non-SRO voting representatives will also be permitted to serve and vote on the operating committee matters. Several commenters expressed support for including non-SRO voting representatives on the operating committee. One commenter states that the requirement for voting representation by a diverse set of stakeholders is a core element of the governance order, with the purpose of reducing conflicts of interest and providing more meaningful inclusion of key stakeholders' views in new consolidated data plan decision making. Another commenter similarly states that it supports expanding voting representation to non-SROs and having them participate as full voting members of the operating committee to allow non-SROs to have a role in the CT plan's decision-making process and therefore help address conflicts of interest. So these are all commenters for non-SROs. Now let's take a look at comments against the non-SROs. These are going to be coming from the SROs themselves. Other commenters oppose the CT plan's provisions that grant non-SROs voting rights on the operating committee. The three commenters state that these provisions are contrary to Section 11A of the Act. These commenters state that Section 11A of the Act authorizes the Commission to direct only the SROs to jointly develop and operate NMS plans and does not provide the authority to give non-SROs voting power on the operating committee of an NMS plan. They're saying, you can't do that, Sec. While acknowledging that the non-SROs should have some voice in the operation of the CT plan, one commenter argues that Congress determined to entrust the planning, development, operation, and regulation of NMS plans to SROs that have specific regulatory obligations to act in furtherance of the public interest. Let us do it, man. Like, you've always let us do it, man. We have the public interest at heart, man. That's what they're saying. And the SEC comes back with, well, actually, that's the next slide, sorry. First, another comment argues that the Act leaves no discretion for the Commission to grant votes to non-SROs, and that providing votes to non-SROs would conflict with the design purpose of the Act, which entrusted responsibility for the planning, development, operation, regulation of the NMS system to SROs, which are subject to comprehensive regulation that you don't follow. Go F yourself. Rather than to non-SROs, whose representatives would have no obligation to act in the public interest and would be free to act in their own personal self-interest. That is completely calling the kettle black. You mofos. Get shit on. Let's see who Gary decides to side with about this. SEC response. The Commission specifically considered and addressed these arguments in the governance order. Bitches. As stated therein, the Commission believes that this is within its authority under Section 11A to require the Operating Committee to include voting rights for non-SROs. And here we go. These findings had substantial support in the comment file for the governance order, as a diverse set of commenters expressed the view that the governance of market data plans should include a broader array of viewpoints. And the Commission reiterates those findings here. And then I added in, bitch. Additionally, nothing in the legislative history of Section 11A indicates that Congress sought to preclude the Commission from directing the SROs to provide non-SROs with a voice in NMS plan governance, particularly where, as here, the Commission has reasonably concluded that doing so will promote the plan's effectiveness, consistent with Section 11A's enumerated goals. Bitch. Further, the Commission does not believe that allowing a broader representation of market participants in the governance of the CT plan by including non-SROs as voting members on the operating committee will diminish the SRO's ability to ensure that the CT plan meets the requirements of Section 11A of the Act and Rule 608 of Regulation NMS. Biatch. Therefore, the Commission continues to believe that inclusion of non-SRO voting representatives on the operating committee would not interfere with the Commission's ability to exercise its oversight over the CT plan. Ya big bitch. It'll be fine. Don't worry, everyone. It's gonna be fine. Unless you're a bank. You're a hedge fund. Didn't you? What? Didn't you? What? And, yep, that's about it for this one. Yeah, Derek Ginsler's a beast. Beast.